Well, welcome back to another episode of the Reality Halfway House. Today we're going to be talking about the new Alien Disclosure movie by Steven Spielberg, kind of following on from that earlier this week. Going to be kind of expounding upon the splitting of the Earth. We talked about Dolores Cannon and moving from 3D to 5D a couple of weeks ago. We're going to kind of get back into that. And channeling my inner Peter Griffin. And what really grinds my gears. We're caught between worlds. This is the Reality Halfway House. I'm your host, Jones Nelson. So today is like the fourth episode. I'm trying to kind of keep things going. The support, ironically, has been pretty great. I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen and to share the podcast. This is a completely new foyer for me, so I just really appreciate it. I know in any sort of endeavor like this, there's going to be some growing pains as you kind of figure things out. There's going to be some structural or infrastructural things like that we're going to be working out. But I just definitely want to put a heartfelt thank you out to everyone out there who has been listening and viewing. I really do appreciate it. And again, like I said, as this podcast grows, ultimately my goal, again, having worked in radio for ever and ever, almost 30 years, I've interviewed so many artists and musicians and, gosh, I've interviewed people in government all throughout the years. So the goal is to be, kind of going down that road of interviews. And I would really like the opportunity to bring on a co-host. So if you're interested in kind of some of the esoteric topics and, we got a good vibe, I'd love to have a conversation with you. You can email me at realityhalfwayhouse@gmail.com and just let me know if that's something you'd be interested in doing. All right, so for today, it's been a long week. It's been an incredibly long week. And I finished work today. They've got us on 610s, at which, I have no problem working. I grew up working on a ranch. And so, it's like hard manual labor is just, like it's in my blood. That's just so I have no problem working. But what I have noticed, and this is what really grinds my gears, people really just don't give a crap anymore about anything. I worked a white-collar job. I have a degree in finance, and I worked in the finance industry for the last 20 years. And, I've always pushed myself really hard. And it was to the point to where it's like I always exceeded expectations, or most years exceeded expectations throughout the course of my career. So it's like I always pushed myself to the next level. And, in finance or in just corporate America in general, you run into this thing called performance punishment. I think we've all kind of, if you've been in corporate America for any given time, you know what that means. It's like the harder you work, the more work you get. So it's like you hit your level of diminished returns pretty quickly as you do it. And it sucks because, we were always raised, or I was always raised and told, it's like you work hard, you're going to be successful. But really and truly, the system is kind of designed the opposite. The harder you work, it's like the more work you get. And it's so backwards from the way that things should be. Because at the end of the day, hard work really should yield a profit. Well, with artificial intelligence, really rapidly growing, exponentially, seems like every day we hear something new. I made the decision a couple of months ago to step outside of corporate America and the finance industry and move from white collar to blue collar. So in other words, I left corporate America and finance for the trades because I figured, it's going to be a hot minute before the robots are going to be able to go through and start, wiring up a house or a building. So I got into the electrical field, and I'm going through an apprenticeship right now. And the thing of it is, and I'm not trying, I hate speaking disparagingly on people, but it's been a week, and I've got a microphone, and what drives me crazy is seeing people not taking advantage of opportunities that are before them, right? This whole attitude of phone it in is like a cancer that is just growing on kind of well, it's growing, not, I was going to say the younger generations, but it's not even that. It's growing on the Gen Zs, the millennials. You see it less and less in like the Gen X and the baby boomers, because they had this work ethic kind of instilled within them. You start to see that kind of taper off with the millennials, as you have this whole generation that was raised with their participation trophies. So there's a lot of people that I work next to in corporate America that were just lazy. And then with Gen Z, I'm starting to see more and more of that. Everybody's on their phones, everybody's doing this, and I'm just as guilty as checking my phones. I joke at least once a week that I'm going to go back to a flip phone, or my Nokia with Snake. Remember that Snake and Brick Breaker? It's like it was a simpler time, and yet now we're in the 24-hour news cycle, so we're constantly needing to stay connected with whatever's happening around the world that none of us can do anything about. It's just really adding to the overall stress of how everything is working. And so it's like, it's really kind of a meaningless activity in a lot of ways. But I'm working in this blue collar arena, and I'm in an apprenticeship, and I'm starting a completely new career, kind of midway through my life, in an effort to go through and to make sure that I'm able to provide for my family, and to find a job that hopefully can go through and withstand, at least for a few years, the AI invasion that's coming in. But I'm surrounded, I'm probably twice the age of most of the people that I'm working next to. And what's amazing to me is their completely lack of effort, or their lack of perceived effort. What I've learned so far in the trades is you show up, you smoke weed for about, you smoke weed all day. I don't, but they smoke weed all day, and then they work for about 4 hours and get paid for 8. I can't handle that. I can't handle that. There's so many people that have that attitude of, I'm just going to go in there and give my very least bit of effort. And if I don't get it done, they'll just give us overtime, and I'll get paid time and a half. It's absolutely bananas to me seeing that in practice. And I never experienced, maybe this is pervasive all throughout the trades. Maybe that's just the way it works. Maybe that's why construction takes so long. I'm not, I'm not trying to throw shade on any person in particular, because I've seen some different trades, since I've been out there, that work exceptionally hard. And I'm just absolutely blown away. But my point to all of this, and what really grinds my gears, is that people have forgotten what it means to work. People are so entitled today. And, and I'm casting a broad net, but people are so entitled, and people just want stuff to be given to them. And I don't want to live in a world where you can't work hard and reap the benefits of it. But we live in a society today to where that's exactly what happens. You work hard, and half of your paycheck is taken with taxes. And then with what's left over, you go to the grocery store, and you have to end up paying, whatever your state tax is. And then you go to the gas pump, and you have to pay taxes there. And then you have to pay taxes on your mortgage, and on and on and on we go, to the point to where even hard work is not yielding a profit anymore. So on the one hand, I can't blame the Gen Zs or the millennials or whoever is not putting forth their best effort, because it's like, what's the point anyway? I'm just going to get taxed. I'm never going to be able to afford to buy a house. So I'm just going to be apathetic. So on the one hand, I totally understand. And on the other hand, my heart aches, because I know we can be better. Look, I'm not saying that this is even my favorite thing. I don't necessarily just want to be an electrician. Look at the wall behind me. And if you're listening to the podcast, I'm in my recording studio, and I have a wall of guitars. I've been so busy working 10s and 12s, I haven't even touched one of these guitars in probably like a month and a half. I mean, it's And it kills me because we don't have opportunities anymore. Because when I'm not working at this job, I'm working at my other job. And when I'm not working at that job, I'm working at my other job. And that's just bare minimum. That's not me rolling into bins. And it's not just me. I'm not sitting here lamenting for the sake of lamenting. That is the kind of status quo for most of America now, and actually extending outside of our borders. That is the status quo across the world. We're drowning. Breaks my heart. Because you should be able to go through and dig your heels in, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I mean, the whole American dream is this notion of being able to go through and to be able to live your life by working hard, and then to be able to actually have something to show for it. But because we work hard and then have nothing to show for it, people choose not to work hard. Breaks me. I seriously was at the point today, I was transferred to another part of the job site and walked in, and they asked me to go through and install an outlet. And so I went and installed the outlet and came back, and nobody was there. They were all on their phone. I asked if there was anything they'd like me to do. Again, I'm twice their age. I've been through several apprenticeships. So while they were on their phones and I had no direction, I can't just stand around. So I swept and cleaned for the last 2 hours of the day. Now, again, I'm not above cleaning. That's part of an apprenticeship. But it's like, I specifically went into this industry to be able to learn how to become an electrician. And apparently it's just smoking dope and sitting on your phone all day. That's apparently what that means. And it just breaks my heart. Breaks my heart. I just think that there's so much missed opportunity in our world today, where people don't have, where people aren't achieving the levels of opportunity or the levels of like greatness that's really within them. And you might say, well, it's just an electrical outlet or whatever. But the reality is we're building a school. So next generations of people have the opportunity to come and learn and grow. It's just what grinds my gears. That's what grinds my gears. I saw this. I thought this was interesting. Again, I am so new. I'm so new to the entire sharing of the screens and everything like that. That it's pretty clunky at this point. So, like I said, if you want to be my co-host, you're going to have to bring me up to speed here. This is kind of carries on with the grinding my gears. I'm a musician, and I've done some shows where everybody's using in-ear monitors and everybody's to a click and everything is like that. And I came across this video today, and it was like it just hit just right. You know what I mean? I was already like in a tricky mood as it was, but it was like this guy sums it up so well. He goes by the name Marvin. I'll put a link to the full video in the show notes. But I just figured I'd let him cook for a second because I agree with almost all that he's saying.
Did you notice that whenever you go out to see a live rock show past a certain size, 9 times out of 10 it fucking sucks ass? Now, how did this genre become so lame? How did live rock music die? Nobody killed it. Nobody sat in a room and decided to destroy it. It was just optimized to death. Yeah. All the problems got solved. The singers got their in-ear monitors. The bands got their click tracks. The guitar players got their digital rigs that switch patches automatically. The lighting became synchronized. The vocals got more and more in tune. The performances became more consistent, and the shows became so fucking boring. It's like showing up to watch somebody bag groceries and then clapping every time they fill up a paper bag. Every year, another layer got added. Automated patch changes, backing tracks, vocal correction, choreographed stage movements. Each individual thing made sense. Each individual thing solved a problem, and that's how we got here. Nobody woke up one morning and decided to turn musicians into robots. We just kept solving problems until there was barely a human being left in the equation. Now, it's true that these new cyborg musicians are more accurate. The show itself is much more reliable, but the magic is also completely fucking gone.
Oh, I love that. I mean, he nails it. He nails it to a T. Because at the end of the day, I've been a touring musician, and I've been playing in bands, gosh, for the last, I don't even know, 20, 25 years. And it's so interesting. This kind of dovetails nicely with what we were just talking about. On the one hand, musicians do work really hard, or they can. I've been around really hardworking musicians and really lazy ones. And you might look at this from the vantage point of, well, they are working really hard. They're putting together a show and it's super optimized. Look, man, I'm one of the most efficient people we know. Walking around the job site, I just want to go through and organize everything. And it's so disorganized, it about makes me want to pull all my hair out. So I am one of the most organized people. And I've played shows like this with the in-ear monitors, and you've got like a music director that's going through and like guiding everybody on stage, and it is incredibly efficient. Everybody, it tells you when the verses are coming, the choruses are coming. But the thing is, people don't rehearse like they used to anymore. You're not running into the same kinds of mistakes. Rather than listening to the rest of the band, you're listening to a click track, or you're listening to cues. You're listening to a music director as opposed to playing off. Like he said, the magic is gone. There is something magical, truly magical, when a band hits the groove. Truly magical. Like I attribute it to this almost like telepathic ability, because you're all speaking a language, but you're playing off of the next individual. If you've ever been to a concert where you've seen it happen, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's like a magic in the room, and everybody can feel it. It's not tangible, but you know it's there. I've felt it and been a part of it so many times. And the problem that we see now is nobody wants to get to that point. That point requires incredible rehearsal and work. You have to rehearse so much to the point to where you're not thinking about playing the songs. You have to be so well rehearsed that you walk in and you just are playing and you're not even thinking about it. And again, this comes back around to what I was just saying before. People stop working as hard. They want the backing tracks. They want the cues and so forth, so that they want the lyrics up in front of them, so I don't have to memorize them. I don't know. It just feels like all of humanity has become super half-assed, and it just breaks my heart. It just absolutely breaks my heart, because we were created. We are created to do awesome. I'll say it. Awesome shit, man. We were created to do awesome and amazing things. And what are we doing with our lives? We're automating everything. We're giving it all to AI. And I understand the hypocrisy. I'm using AI as we speak with this recording platform. I swore I'd never do it. But in getting into the podcasting arena, it's like, in order to be able to facilitate the way that things are now, it's almost inescapable to be able to do it. To be competitive, you have to be. I don't know, man. We're into some interesting times for sure. Interesting times for sure. And I think it's going to get a little bit more interesting because we were talking about earlier this week the alien disclosure. I was thinking that it was a documentary, but I guess it's actually a movie. The more I learn about it, Steven Spielberg put it out, and there's a lot of fire and press behind it. David Icke, let me pull up the video here. If you don't know who David Icke is, you definitely need to look him up, because he's a pretty cool dude. He's been in kind of the realm of the esoteric for ever. He's David Icke. If you don't know who he is kind of like one of the founding members in a lot of ways. He's taken a lot of heat over the years because he's just been so out on the fringe. And as we've gotten closer and closer to disclosure, it's kind of like it's like they say, with conspiracy theories, if you give it 6 months, I mean, it's going to be, kind of be true, if you will. I'm butchering that phraseology there. But David Icke, I thought, had some interesting insights. I just want to play a little bit about it. This is from Facebook post Linol Anderson. And again, I'll link to the full video in the show notes so you can go check it out for yourself. But I just want to play a clip here because I thought it was interesting.
I said in the last few days of 2025 that 2026 would be the year of the alien. Why? Because I started to see that Steven Spielberg was putting out this movie, Disclosure Day, and it would fit perfectly with what we've been seeing for the last few years now, which is a gradual, if you like, authority acceptance of UFOs, UAPs, and alien life as a possibility. Now, I remember back in the 1990s, when I was traveling around America, that the authority dismissal of the whole idea was constant. Everything from weather balloons to, oh, you're talking about little green men.
Yeah.
No, I'm actually not. I'm talking about a non-human force operating ultimately from another dimension that is manipulating and controlling, as indeed created the simulated reality that we think is real.
I think that is a really interesting point because we kind of touched on that. I think it was last week when we were looking at this about how are we living in a simulation? Is this tied to the alien disclosure too? I think that that's kind of an interesting point that he makes and an interesting correlation because, he said year 2026 is what, the year of the alien. I don't think that anybody can argue with that. I think that more and more, I mean, look at the Super Bowl ad that we just had. What was it, last year or the year before? I mean, they're just slowly dripping this into it. And the thing that grabs me the most is that for years it was like, oh, you're crazy. You're not seeing anything in the skies, or you didn't see any weird lights. Look, I'm from Roswell, New Mexico. I've said this before. But it's super. The thing about Roswell, New Mexico, is it's super dark out there. I mean, it's like a population like 45, 50,000 people in southeastern New Mexico. Like there's no light pollution out there. You can see the Milky Way. You can see satellites, all that kind of stuff. And it's very common to see things out there in the sky. Like I've seen things out there in the sky that I can't explain. But to mention that sort of thing in years past, you'd be labeled crazy. Like, oh man, you're crazy for that. There's no way that that's going to be. There's no way that that's actually real. You're just making it up. And now it's like, well, actually, there's 4 different species of aliens that we know about, and it's like, are we just gonna brush over the fact that that people have been saying this for years? Look at Coast to Coast with Art Bell and George Norrie. I mean, they've been talking about this stuff forever. The guys in Mysterious Universe have been talking about this stuff forever. I mean, there's so many different things, and it's like, are they getting an apology? Like, what's going on? So with the Spielberg movie that's coming out, and I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to try to go check it out this weekend if they've got it showing here. But at the end of the day, it's interesting because he's been so influential. I saw a video earlier this morning talking about how, with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he brought it out, and it was like, oh, it tries to create this kind of genial or kind of overall good vibe, benevolent vibe of these alien creatures. With E.T., he tried to create this, like, really lovable, like dim-witted alien that was like, really not with the program in a lot of ways. And so with this, it's supposed to be a lot more, focused on, controlling things. Like David Icke was just talking about, he's postulating that, not only are they aliens, but they're interdimensional, and they've created some sort of a matrix or some sort of a simulation that we're all trapped in. I don't know. There's a lot of wild theories that are kind of floating around out there. I'm not necessarily sure what I subscribe to. It's probably kind of a buffet type situation, that it is probably a little bit of all of it. Dolores Cannon, we were talking about it. We were talking about her and the kind of the splitting of the world a few weeks ago. And she of course postulates that, we are the world that we're currently in, the earth as we know it, just like cellular mitosis, is actually fixing to split in half. So just like a cell divides, our world divides, and you've got the old earth and you've got the new earth. Some people call it the 3D and the 5D. There's a lot of different names that people attribute to this. But I think at the end of the day, it really boils down to everybody that's paying attention understands that there's something bigger at play. Again, I talk about this every episode, but it's like we are truly in this weird purgatory in between these worlds, the splitting of the two worlds. This old world where it's like people are happy and they're smiling. Like I saw a thing the other day, a video, and it was like, I was looking at video. They said I was looking at videos of the 90s and the early 2000s, and it was just random, footage, like people at baseball games and just out and about. And he said they were smiling. It was lighthearted. Now everything's so heavy. I mean, it's like there's it feels like we're all wearing a weighted blanket at all times. It's like life. It's like I have this picture in my head of wearing a weighted vest and riding my bike up a 45-degree incline, and it's just hard, and it's just and then I'm towing something behind it. It's just life is just hard for the sake of being hard. I don't know, man. It's kind of interesting because at the end of all of this, when whatever happens, because it does feel like we're heading for some sort of a big event. We talked about that a few weeks ago, but really and truly what that event is, I don't know. Some people call it the Kali Yuga. I mean, there's a few different, you can look into that, where every 25,000 years there's a huge reset. We've seen all throughout our history, we've seen the Ice Age, where the world went topsy-turvy and went frozen. And then you see, big volcanoes. You look at Pompeii. There's so many different things that could transpire, and it's at the end of the day, they're going to be playing UFC on the White House lawn this weekend. The world is so weird right now. The world is absolutely bonkers. Nobody wants to work, and who can blame them? Because you're going to work and kill yourself so that you can go through and rent. You can't even afford to buy a house. You're going to get taxed on all of it anyway. You've got aliens literally on mainstream news where they're talking about the 4 different species of aliens that they know. And literally we have UFC on the White House. I saw the UFC itself is actually paying for the event, but the taxpayers are actually going to be on the hook for security for the event. I don't know, man. I get that we're coming up on the 250th anniversary of our country, and I want to be supportive of those things. And I think it's something that we should celebrate. But I think that we need to dig down really deep and ask ourselves, what are we celebrating? Are we really proud of where we're at 250 years later? Did our forefathers, did they expect that we would be this far along after being so irritated over 2% T tax, and now nobody wants to work? because we can't afford to buy gas and eggs. I don't know. It is definitely it's definitely an interesting spot to be. I'm just sitting here waiting for the world to literally split apart at this point, or aliens to come. I joked on my radio show. It's like, if they come and abduct us and we only have to work 3 days a week, it's like, here's my address. We are definitely caught between worlds. This is the Reality Halfway House.